It's program adoption. And that's a program that doesn't meet either the needs of the client as a whole, it doesn't meet the needs of individual departments or users, and it doesn't effectively meet the needs of suppliers. So you get a program to where the feedback becomes, this is more difficult, this is more challenging, I got to go through all these additional steps that I didn't have before. Now, part of that is sometimes gaining control of a process is adding some additional rigor around the process of getting a contingent worker. And there's always some level of pushback if a manager was able to pick up a phone and call their favorite supplier and say, I need 3 people here to do this. And they send the people and the manager signs the time cards and they get billed and those invoices get paid versus having to go through a process that perhaps has financial approval and those sorts of things. But when we really look at it through the implementation process, it has to consider the user experience and what we're doing. And so part of what we do in an implementation is that we will push back. I've worked with clients that are like, okay, we're going to have 5 people on an approval process. And we will say that's really extreme. And when we look at our experience, we say, here's the challenge in doing that. If you have 5 steps in financial approval, you're probably looking at, on average, 10 to even as much as 20 days to get a requisition approved. So we will provide consultation related to those types of processes to make sure that we're really considering the user experience and the usability of the overall program. There's a lot of things like that, but then from an MSP perspective, if there's certain things that are not correctly scoped or we don't have the information, then you go live with a process that's perhaps broken or missing integration or missing data point that when the first round of invoices come in, there's a missing field or we didn't know we need to capture a project ID because nobody mentioned that to us. And so all of those things can happen. And then there's not understanding the client's culture and what their operational environment looks like. And it's not only just the general culture of a company. When you work with a major Fortune 100 company, there's subcultures inside of these major companies, and you need to understand the difference between a financial and accounting department versus production and how you work with those managers. And so not understanding the culture, which means that you could potentially onboard the program team that is not best aligned for that client, and that can cause additional friction. And so there's lots of negative outcomes for not spending the time and not really understanding what you're doing or what the customer is. And there's always going to be some percentage of that because there's always that percentage of things that nobody's ever researched or understands within the company. But we work really hard to minimize those unknowns.